Good morning. This show is Elul Tishre Part 5. Beshem Hashem Naaseh V'Natzliach. So this show is dedicated for Refuah Shlema to Avram ben Chana, Yosef ben Esther, Zechariah ben Pearl Shira, Ahuva bat Tova, Rafael Meir Chaim ben Sima Chasha. And לעילוי נשמת כל נשמה שזקוקה לזכות, and for our soldiers to come home safely, and for the safety of all Jews wherever they are, and for our single that Bezrat Hashem יזכו לבנות בית נאמן בישראל soon, very soon. Thank you to all my listeners and supporters for tuning in and helping to spread Torah. And thank you, Hashem, for all your chasadim that you have done in the past, and please continue to do so in the future. So, to recap, in part 4, we learned about the tekiot, the blowing of the shofar, and the meaning of the tekiot, the meaning of the blast. So today, Rosh Hashanah falls on Aleph and Bet Tishrei. However, the Torah doesn't call, you're not going to find anywhere the words Rosh Hashanah, which means the beginning of the year. The Torah calls it Yom HaZikaron, the day of remembrance. It says, as it says in the Pasuk, B'chodesh HaShevi'i, in the 7th month, which is the month of Tishrei, Be'echad LaChodesh, on the 1st of the month, Yihyeh Lachem, it's going to be for you, Shabbaton, a complete day of rest. It means no work, no work is allowed to be done. Zikaron Teruah, a remembrance with shofar blasts. Mikra Kodesh, that you come together in prayer and praise. So the Midrash says, if we want to have a good judgment, that we should mention the names of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the Avot. This zechut will help us have a good judgment. In the Torah, however, a word is used once. Whenever a word is used once, and we see it later again in the Torah or in the Navi, we always find that there is a connection between the two. So in the Pasuk, Echad LaChodesh, we find Echad LaChodesh is in the Pasuk in the Torah. We find a hint for Avraham because it says in the Navi Yehezkel, Echad Haya Avraham. Avraham was the only one. Okay? In the words Zichron Teruah, that is a remembrance with the blast of the shofar, there is a hint for Yitzchak, as it says, Vayar hine vehine ayil, and he saw, Avraham saw, and there was a ram, which is in Bereshit. In the words of the Mikra Kodesh, which means it's the word Mikra Kodesh means that we all gather, we are called to gather to pray and say praises to Hashem, is the hint for Yaakov. In the Navi Yeshaya, it says, Shema Elai Yaakov veYisrael mikorai. What does this mean? It means Hashem is saying, you, the descendants of Yaakov, whom are named Israel, listen to my words of Torah. Then the Midrash ends by telling us that when we are supposed to mention the names of the Avot, as the Pasuk says, B'chodesh HaShevi'i, in the month of 7th month. Okay? So here we learn that on the 7th month, the first of the month, we are supposed to actually mention the names of the Avot. So now the Rosh Shimshon says, asks a couple of questions. The first one is, it seems as if the wording, the lashon of the pasuk, is not exact, right? So we need to look into it, why it's not exact. It says zikaron teruah, zichron teruah, which means a remembrance with shofar blasts, right? Because by blowing the shofar, it awakens for us the zechut of Akedat Yitzchak. If so, would it not be more correct to say teruat zikaron, a blast for remembrance? That was the first question. Second question, like there's a very small nuance about the difference in between, but there is a difference between these two. The second one, why does the Midrash teach us about the zechut of the Akedah by reminding us about the ram that was found by Abraham, which really is not the focal point in the test of Abraham? And there is no zichron teruah, remembers with the shofar blasts. The focal point was that Abraham should be ready to slaughter his only son on the Mizbeach. Therefore, it would have been more appropriate to quote Vayakod et Yitzchak beno, the pasuk that tells us that Abraham he tied up his son Yitzchak with ropes. So in this pasuk, we awaken the zechut of Yitzchak, who stretched his neck, just stretched his neck, right, to be slaughtered. He was ready, was 100% with it. He wanted, and he was ready to be a korban for Hashem. On the Mizbeach, on the altar. So the answer is like this. The Rosh Shimshon explains, in every mitzvah, there are two parts. The first one is the action of the mitzvah. The second one is the intention of the mitzvah. Each part influences differently spiritually. There's a difference spiritually with each part of the mitzvah. The action part causes the accusations against us to be cancelled. Lematek et hadinim. There are all kinds of accusations against us because of what we have, each and every one of us has done. So, lematek, it means to cancel out. That's it. To cancel out, to sweeten, by canceling out the accusation, we are sort of like sweetening the judgment. The machshava, the intention, which is the second part of the mitzvah, goes up to Shamayim and helps us turn over the judgment from din, strict judgment, to midat harahamim, to a judgment that is full of rahamim, of mercy. The intention, the machshava, is greater than the ma'aseh, than the action. In the Sefer HaChaim it says, one should try at all times to have a good, pure thoughts. Why? Because our thoughts, they don't just stay in our mind, they go up to Shamayim. Chachamim teach us that hiruhure avera, thoughts of avera, are worse than the avera itself. Why? Because it affects the upper worlds of spirituality. it does has an effect. From here, we learn how much good is done with good thoughts. However, we need to remember a good thought, a good intention must be done with the action to turn this into a mitzvah and to turn over the din into rahamim. So let's look at what happened in Akedat Yitzchak. Abraham was told to take his son, the one that he loved, his only son, to take him and bring him as a korban, right, on the altar. So in his thoughts, he had every intention of slaughtering his son Yitzchak. That's what he was asked to do. He didn't ask questions. He had tons of questions, but he didn't ask questions yet. And this was only in thoughts. He tied his son. They traveled for 3 days all the way there. The Yitzhara tried to stop him. Abraham killed the Yitzhara. Then he went over to Yitzchak and tried to get Yitzchak. Nothing. Yitzchak killed the Yitzhara. And they just were focused until they got to the mountain. And Abraham put the wood on the altar. And he put his son, that he bound him. Because Yitzchak said to him, bind me, tie me up, because just from my instinct, I might push your hand away. So just tie me up. And he tied him up, put him on the mizbeach. And he had every intention of slaughtering Yitzchak. Until the Malach came and said, stop, stop, stop. Hashem doesn't want you. Hashem does not want a human being sacrifice, a korban. But Abraham had prepared the wood for a purpose. The purpose of the wood was to be used for the fire, for Yitzchak, to burn Yitzchak. So what's going to happen now? That wood took on a certain kedusha. It couldn't just be disposed. It couldn't be desecrated. By disposing it, it means that it will be desecrated. So to bring Abraham to the full mitzvah, it means that he had to bring a korban. Hashem told him, there is a ram. Take that ram, tachat beno, tachat bincha Yitzchak, instead of your son Yitzchak. So this way, the wood, which now had a certain kedusha, a certain holiness, the wood that was dedicated to be burnt on the mizbeach for a korban, now it's going to be used to burn the ram. That wood had acquired a kedusha. This kedusha could not be desecrated. So Avram could not just use it for something else, for a barbecue, or he couldn't. And this is what gives us the zechut, as the zechut, as the kedusha of the wood was not desecrated. So too, the kedusha of Am Yisrael will never be desecrated. This we earned by Abraham using the wood. We earned the zechut of never ever being desecrated. We have kedusha, and that kedusha stays in us. Abraham was very happy when he saw the ram, because Abraham, of course, he was upset. He thought, maybe I can make maybe a little scratch, a little cut. Hashem said nothing, absolutely nothing. So then what? Avram was very happy that Hashem had provided something else so that the wood would not just be desecrated. And there was a miracle that right there, 2 or 4 feet away from Abraham, there was a ram. That was a miracle. Actually, this ram Hashem had prepared from Yemei Bereshit. There are 10 things that Hashem did. 10 things that Hashem did right before Shabbat, between the twilights. And one of them is to prepare the ram for Abraham. So now Hashem wanted the ram to be used. He told Abraham, go use that ram. That ram will be instead of your son. So as Abraham was slaughtering the ram, removing the blood, removing the skin, cutting up the pieces, burning, putting each piece on the fire, every movement that he did, he was thinking, this is instead of my son Yitzchak. This is what I should have been doing for my son. So he connected his thoughts to the action. Then and only then the Akedat Yitzchak is used as a remembrance and as a zechut, because before Hashem. Why? To quiet the voices of our accusers. So we see here and we learn how a mitzvah is done and what it needs to become a zechut for us, to quiet the accusers and change the judgment from din to rahamim. It's the same, and when we put tzedakah, we do the same thing. I'm making tzedakah because Hashem, you ordered me. It's a mitzvah. You told me, you taught me to put tzedakah. When I make a beracha, it's Hashem because you taught me I have to say a beracha. The action and the thought. So may Hashem help us always to have proper thoughts, good thoughts, and fulfill the mitzvot properly. So there will be a zechut to change the din to rahamim. And in the zechut of the Zera Shimshon, may Hashem help us to inspire, to grow in our level of spirituality and see only nachat from our children. And be blessed with beracha, hatzlacha, simcha, parnasa, briut, shalom, zivugim, vechol tuf.